Some countries bring to mind art, old ruins, or postcard views, yet others spark a single burning question the moment their name is spoken. What on earth is really happening there? Iran, after the strike in mid-2025, sits in that second list. Imagine a place where groceries jump in price faster than a viral TikTok dance, where a woman can land in jail for tying on a scarf the wrong shade, and where the power bill goes up, the lights go out, then the bill climbs again like a cruel prank that never ends. Buried under rubble and daily speeches, an even bigger story waits to be uncovered. First comes the hit that changed everything. On June 13th, 2025, every old idea about Iran's defense vanished in under 3 days. Israel's Operation Lion Rising zeroed in on more than its nuclear labs, hammering energy hubs, command bunkers, and key supply depots with a fury that stunned the region. Numbers from the Center for Middle East Conflict Analysis tell the tale. In the first 24 hours alone, over 40 vital military and money-making sites were struck by long-range missiles and drones, and the hit rate for knocking them out was an eye-watering 86%. The Natanz nuclear complex, the big fuel farm in Tehran, and a power hub in Yazd all went up in smoke. The ripple was brutal. 5 major provinces fell into darkness, water pumps fell silent, and traffic lights turned entire cities into gridlock nightmares. At the same moment, the rial crashed almost 18% inside one frantic day of trading, and food prices leaped 30% in the first week. Long lines for cooking oil, rice, and basic medicine wrapped around blocks as the losses flashed on the giant ticker boards. Worst of all, recovery barely crawled. Foreign cash reserves were already drained by late 2024 sanctions, so repairs stalled before they began. The International Monetary Fund now warns that without fresh money, the country's growth will dive to -1.2 to -2% in 2025, marking the steepest drop in 3 decades. How could an economy that has lived under sanctions for years break this fast? The answer is its fragile frame. Roughly 65% of the national budget rises from selling oil and gas, but once storage tanks and pipelines were blown apart, that river of income dried up overnight. Inside markets were tight, even before the blast, and the hit squeezed them harder. With fuel scarce, trucks stopped rolling, so containers of imported food piled up outside Bandar Abbas port because no one had diesel or drivers to haul them inland. The supply chain froze in plain sight. Trust collapsed right behind the currency. A month after the strike, the Iranian Center for Social Research asked people in Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz if they believed the government could keep them safe, and more than 72% said no. Hoarding of food, bottled water, and dollars exploded to 5 times last year's level. The next move from the top was not rescue, but clampdown. As soon as the walls looked weak, leaders rushed to seal every crack. Phone links overseas were cut in many provinces, home internet crawled, and cell towers went dark in places where protests might flare. Arrests for so-called security crimes shot up 300% in 2 weeks. Print shops had to show every leaflet for review before ink hit paper, and standing in a group of 4 in some southern towns could be ruled a crime. Mobile checkpoints sprang up at the gates of Tehran, Mashhad, and Shiraz, where police pulled young travelers for buses for ID checks. This squeeze sparked a silent stampede. The Iranian Population Data Organization says about 120,000 people fled big cities during the first month after the raids, heading for rural or border zones where patrols were lighter. New arrivals drained food stocks and clinic shelves in those areas, brewing tension that could blow at any moment. When a state feels threatened on every side, it often starts to see every citizen as a possible foe. You can measure that fear in the endless ID checks, the sudden phone taps, and the thick line of guards on each corner. Space to think, speak, or even travel has become a luxury that many Iranians can only remember. Then came the silent enemies of poverty and pollution. With 40% of power plants crippled, countless homes faced blackouts that lasted 12 to 16 hours every single day. Water networks in the south and east failed by 60%, leaving tens of thousands without a drop for long stretches. Without power for refrigeration and pumps, shops lost stock and farmers lost harvests. In only 3 weeks, the price of a mid-grade sack of rice jumped from 250,000 rials to nearly 800,000 rials. For many families, that sack now costs more than a month's wage. The dominoes keep falling, and the story is still being written. Hospitals paid the price too. Backup generators drank fuel that did not exist, forcing emergency rooms to choose which machines to keep running and which patients to move in hallways filled with heat and worry. Small factories closed their gates, throwing whole neighborhoods out of work overnight and pushing unemployment to levels the government refused to publish. Even the simple act of charging a phone became a daily quest. People lined up at gas stations with small power banks and begged station owners to plug them in while pumps still had juice. When night fell, entire districts glowed faintly with candles, the smell of kerosene mixing with the summer dust. Black market traders rushed in. Diesel, solar panels, satellite phones. Anything that could beat the shortages suddenly cost triple the old price. Yet desperate families still paid. Every whispered deal carried risk because undercover agents lurked in markets, ready to seize goods and arrest sellers in the name of national security. Schools tried to reopen, but found no steady electricity for lights or computers. Teachers switched back to chalkboards while students sweated in dark classrooms, their lessons interrupted by sudden sirens or distant drone alerts. Children learned new math by counting the hours since the last power cut. Shock echoes through every kitchen in Iran today. Fresh milk, already rare because chillers keep shutting down, is now a precious treat. Meat and poultry have vanished from the stalls of Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz, while the air above those cities has slipped from red alert into data chaos because monitors can no longer measure the poison swirling overhead. A leak from battered petrochemical tanks blasted clouds of toxic gas across western Tehran, driving SO2 and NOx to 4 times the safety line for days on end. Some stations recorded an AQI above 500, the top of the global danger scale, then simply blinked offline because the numbers grew too ugly to track. With the energy grid collapsing alongside the environment, daily life has turned into a brutal marathon. Under a 40-degree sun, families queue for hours just to fill a jug with clean water, each weight grinding down bodies and patients alike. Factories that once roared on the city edge now stand silent. Rolling blackouts and empty fuel tanks forced entire industrial estates to close, throwing crowds of workers onto the street. Iran's Ministry of Labor admits unemployment hit 19% in Q2 of 2025, the worst figure since 1994, and that count ignores unpaid overtime, forced leave, and slash shifts now rampant in Kazakhstan, Kerman, and Fars. Every gauge screams recession. Industrial output sank 28% year-on-year, and exports crashed by more than half because trucks lack diesel and ports lack spare parts. International aid groups warn that hospitals hold less than 30 days of medicine and equipment, leaving clinics to ration bandages as carefully as surgeons once measured doses. For millions, survival is no longer a line on a chart. It is a personal duel with hunger and fear every single dawn. Women feel the squeeze hardest. Beyond lost jobs and empty store shelves, new legal walls close in on their daily steps. Dress rules have turned into roaming checkpoints, and anyone leaving home without approved coverings risks rough searches on the street. Enforcement squads doubled, haunting markets, bus hubs, and hospital gates, eyes sharp for any slip. Money fines arrive with the new rules. First-time wardrobe offenders pay about $100, a crushing sum for most female laborers. Second mistakes draw forced shifts cleaning public streets or sorting trash at recycling yards. Education doors are slamming too. Technical universities in Tehran, Tabriz, and Karaj froze female admission to mechanical engineering, information technology, and material science, claiming resources must go to national defense. Dropout numbers for women have soared 40% in 1 year, hopes fading with each shuttered classroom. Work options shrink daily. The Iranian Labor Analysis Center counts more than 60% of women in service jobs, now unemployed after small cafes and shops switched off lights for good. Even health clinics, long a haven for female staff, cut a quarter of their contract posts due to missing funds. Yet inside this pressure cooker, quiet networks bloom. Instead of large rallies, small circles gather in kitchens and courtyards to share meals, sew masks, and pass out antibiotics in poor districts. Some teach children at home because classrooms sit dark, keeping young minds alive when official lessons stop. Still, the urge to escape grows. A confidential poll by the Iranian Institute for Social Research finds almost 64% of women aged 20 to 40 now hope to leave the country soon, a leap from 37% last year. You see it in tired faces at checkpoints, in whispered chats that fade when strangers pass, and in one stubborn spray paint message on a cracked Tehran wall that reads, "We are still here, and we are not over." Culture fights on through the dust. In Shiraz, where poets once recited under leafy trees, lovers of verse now huddle in basements lit by old flashlights. Their poems have traded spring blossoms for blunt tales of grit, refusal, and pride. Farther east, the sacred fire of Yazd keeps burning. Kerosene is rationed by the leader, yet caretakers refuse to let the flame die because it stands for endurance stronger than stone. In small villages such as Aban, handlooms clatter on, weaving cloth from recycled cotton torn out of discarded shirts. Slipping into traditional robes each morning is no longer simple custom. It is a bold claim of identity against a tide of forced conformity. Street art erupts across Tehran and Mashhad. Fresh graffiti splashes broken chains, open doors, and a warning, oxygen is a basic right, onto grimy walls. Each stencil is a breath of free thought sprayed in bright color on concrete that once felt deaf and blind. Meanwhile, former university students barred from campus have opened unofficial workshops that meet in back rooms to retell stories of the Achaemenid and Sassanid empires. There are no chalkboards or formal tests, yet the rooms fill anyway, because remembering ancient triumphs helps people believe they belong to something far larger than today's trouble. The struggle runs through every meal skipped, every whispered poem, every secret lesson, and every bright mural that declares life will not bend forever. Silence itself can be policed in today's Iran. When reading a poem or spinning a loom needs official approval, you have to ask, where does state control stop and private life begin? Every time fresh paint covers a wall, every time a woman dares a bright scarf, or kids act out Persian kings in a narrow lane, each tiny act rings out like a shout. We are still alive, and we still choose what Iran means. The turmoil that followed June 2025 is no longer locked inside Iran's borders. Patterns from other troubled spots now show up on Tehran's cracked sidewalks. Kashmir in India and Detroit in the United States offer the clearest mirrors. Their history, weather, and politics differ, yet the scars look familiar. Kashmir's endless checkpoints, sudden internet bans, intense street searches echo across Tehran and Mashhad today. Armored posts slice central avenues much like those that once split Srinagar, and the stress creeps into daily thoughts. During high tension in Kashmir, month-long web blackouts choked freelance jobs and wiped out online shops. Western Iran now faces 9-hour mobile outages every day, stealing paychecks from thousands who depend on clicks and code. Cafe owners who once relied on food delivery apps now watch orders vanish while screens stay dark. Detroit shows another warning. After the auto crash of the 2000s, that proud industrial city toppled into bankruptcy, empty lots, and waves of unrest. Unemployment there peaked at 28%, dragging libraries, clinics, and bus routes to the brink. Iran's jobless rate already sits above 19%, and keeps climbing as factories stall and construction sites freeze. Streets dotted with gutted houses once filled with music now stand as silent warnings, showing how quickly proud neighborhoods can unravel when hope fades and cash dries up. Many global analysts whisper that Detroitization is unfolding along the Zagros Mountains, only this time under a tighter political grip. There is one twist. Detroit was a free market meltdown, but Iran blends money trouble with hard restrictions. Yet the scoreboard of human progress looks alarmingly alike. International teams estimate Iran's Human Development Index dipped from 0.77 in 2022 to about 0.70 by mid-2025. Drop in literacy support, rising infant illness, and shrinking incomes each chip away at that score. When cash, freedom, and trust all run short at once, the slide picks up frightening speed. Lines for bread stretch across boulevards once known for evening strolls. Parents carry toddlers through heat waves just to reach pharmacies that may have no antibiotics left. Pensioners sell household dishes beside broken fountains hoping for one more meal. Every corner whispers the same question. How much deeper can the fall go? Heavy filters on news, jobs, and movement cannot snuff out every spark of resistance. An underground web of young workers and students sneaks tips through the few digital cracks that remain. Simple guides for first aid, legal rights, and hidden food drops flash through scrambled chat windows before sensors can blink. To dodge blocks, some groups hop between networks every night, sharing passwords and code, words hidden inside old song lyrics. Crypto tells its own tale. One global exchange reports that deals coming from Iran in April to June 2025 were 4 times higher than a year before. People raced to shield savings from the central bank's reach. Family gifts once sent by cousins abroad now arrive as digital coins, swapped in back rooms for scarce banknotes. Crowd-funded relief drives once popped up now and then. Today they tick like clockwork, with fresh wallet codes bouncing through private groups each week. Silent walkouts also shout. In June alone, more than 120 flash strikes rocked food plants, mini oil refineries, and city buses. Most lasted only hours, yet the rhythm grew louder with each repeat, proving organizers are learning to move under the radar. Metro drivers who stopped trains for just 10 minutes forced officials to scramble and promise fuel deliveries, showing how even short pauses can shake the system. Why risk so much for a leaflet or a lesson? A sweeping survey by the Middle East Institute of Sociology gives a grim clue. 68% of Iranians aged 18 to 35 now feel they have nothing left to lose after the June crisis. That feeling births a new style of pushback, small, steady, and hard to crush. No vast rallies like 2022. Instead, forged travel passes, unregistered food drops, and hand-sized printers in car trunks pumping out pocket-sized flyers. 3 straight months of shock have shoved every gauge into the red. Inflation roars at 65%, joblessness tops 19%, and many clinics, buses, and water pumps sit dead. With safe food, water, and air all scarce, patience is thinning to a thread. Once economic pain, strict rules, and fraying trust collide. Backlash is only a calendar question. Iran's post-June ordeal is more than charts, ration tickets, or gray news briefs. It is a tug-of-war between rulers tightening their grip and citizens counting down to a final snap. Remember, every headline here reflects real people surviving hour by hour, and their stories will shape tomorrow's Middle East narrative. If today's report opened your eyes, smash that like button, share it with friends, and hit subscribe to Global Homeless News so we can keep digging into hidden stories worldwide. Drop a comment below. Your voice matters more than ever and truly does change the conversation.